Hi, this is your host, Kevin Brake. I'd like to thank you for your interest in watching today's session. This is the first episode of the eLearning show. We are going to be doing multiple episodes on a lot of different topics, including software that you can use, learning management system applications, a lot of stuff that'll really help if you are new to the e-learning field. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to use lists in Microsoft Excel. We have a guest speaker, Mr. Excel, and a lot of really nice examples of the work. I have to apologize up front for all the heavy editing that has been done to conform to the restrictions of file size in YouTube. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the show. Upon completion of this course, you will be able to describe a consecutive list, describe a complex list, explain the benefits of using lists in Microsoft Excel, create a real-world example of how to effectively use a Microsoft Excel list. You'll learn to use the autofilter function, and you'll learn how to use the freeze pane function. Okay, our first example is going to consist of how to do a numeric list. Simple matter of entering a number into each cell. A minimum, you have to have 2 numbers. You then click in the first cell until you have both cells highlighted. You'll notice that there is a tiny black box and your cursor will change. When you click on it, hold and drag it to the right, you'll even notice that the numbers are changing. When I release the button, we now have what is known as a consecutive or numeric list. And this concludes the demonstration of how to create numeric and calendar-based lists. Okay, here you can see an example of a non-secured list. It consists of the MCP number, the name of the person, the address of the person, and the phone number. Fairly common data that is pretty much accessible to anybody. I'm just going to click on Secure List tab. We're looking at, there is a common element. The MCP number is a common element in both the non-secure and secure list. But when you look at the secure list, there is more information that's kept private. So you just can't look at John Doe and find out that there's some private medical history information that would be wide open without the use of the MCP number to hide the true identity of an actual person. Of course, we can do a cross-check and look up more information on a person based on the MCP number, but on first glance to a layman, it looks like it's still quite secure. So as you can see here, I have merged the two lists into one. I have the name of the person, address, phone number, MCP number, and treatment. This might be a common report asked by government, but because we have two different types of lists, it might sound like it's a little bit harder to complete than it is. When I click on the cell with the information, I'm going to look up to the actual code here, and we're going to talk about it a little bit. What this is asking, it's saying go to D3, which is this cell right here, then cross-check D3 in the non-secure list, which is this list. The size of the list starts at A3, which is here, A3, and it ends at D6. So what's going on is, okay, if you find an MCP number that matches in this list, return back information. So column 2, provide me with what is in column 2. So let's have a look. 1, 2. If I wanted the address instead of the name, I would go back here, click on this, type in 3, and now it gives me the address. If I want to go back, change it to 2, Now it's only going to pull up the name. So this is a similar code that's used throughout the application. Right now we're going to turn things over to our guest speaker, Mr. Bill Gillen, also known as Mr. Excel, and he'll talk about how we're looking at lists and how we can use them in the medical field. So it's just his perspective on lists and the use of lists in the medical field. So I'm just going to hand things over to him right now.
Hey, this is Bill Gelling with Mr. Excel. I understand that you're interested in using lists in Microsoft Excel. I always have a few tips whenever you're setting up a list in Excel. A couple of things to remember. We want to have no blank rows and no blank columns in the list. I know that sometimes people leave tiny little blank columns between their columns to make the data look better, but you want to try and avoid using that. Make sure that you have a nice, solid, contiguous block of data. The other trick is to make sure that there is a heading above every single column. So if you have 8 columns worth of information, make sure that there's a 1-row heading above every one of those columns. And when your data is set up like this, it's what I call list format. Now, if you're in Excel 2003, you can explicitly tell Excel that you have a list by using the Control-L shortcut key. But even in previous versions of Excel, as long as you set up your data like this, everything will be perfect. Once your data is set up in list format, many things happen. First of all, it's possible to sort the list by clicking a single button, the A to Z or Z to A buttons in the standard toolbar. The trick there is to make sure that you select just one cell in the column. So if you want to sort by column B, make sure to select just cell B1 or B2, not the whole column, not a couple of cells, just a single column, just a single cell, and hit either button. Other interesting things that we have is underneath Data, Filter, Auto Filter, you can get little drop downs that appear on each heading, which allow you to filter the list to say just certain fields, certain values in one field or certain values in multiple fields. My other favorite feature in a list is to use the automatic subtotals feature. This is where you need to add totals or averages based on some values. So let's say that you have patient name in column A. You could sort by patient A and then use data subtotals and say at each change in patient name, we want to add an average to columns E, F, and G. And within a second, Excel goes through and can insert thousands of new subtotals for you automatically. Of course, the best thing that we can do with a list is to use a pivot table. Pivot tables are by far the most powerful feature that we have in Excel. They allow you to take a list of 5,000 or 50,000, or in the new Excel 2007, even 500,000 rows of data, and very, very quickly produce a summary of that information.
I'll turn off the auto filter. I will use this information just to populate the list. Make it rather long. As you can see, when you scroll down, traditionally, you don't know what the titles are. This is what we're going to fix by using the freeze pane function. Okay, underneath window, you'll notice split. And what we need to do is we need to identify where we want the information to be split. So right now, all I want to show is the headers. Even though I have maybe 50 pages, when I continue to scroll down into the database itself or into this view, I'm going to freeze to pane. Because I've selected this split, now when I scroll down, I always know, no matter if it's 50, 100 pages, what the title is for each column. Useful feature when you're doing this type of work. And that pretty much concludes our demonstration of how to use freeze panes. And if you don't want to use it anymore, you can unfreeze the panes, and I believe you can just click remove the split, and everything is back to normal.